And it's just after 2 o'clock. We've got probably just over 40 people here, which is great. So Janice, I'm just going to kick off, but as I just said to everyone, if you wouldn't mind just muting yourself so that we don't have any background noise. And then as soon as this is over, I will send the presentation out to everyone. And the joys of having a daughter who can edit, I'll get her to edit the video and it will be up on our YouTube channel as well. But Janice, over to you. I'll let you kick off.
Okay, thank you, Adrienne. Lovely to see all of you, or some of you, or most of you. And apologise if some of you were at a webinar last week. This is slightly different. So I've just added a few bits into it. So just starting off with the first slide, which is the unlocking of tourism. So the dates still remain the 26th of June and the 3rd of July. Caravans and self-catering will be out this week. So it'll just be interesting to see how that goes. Understand self-catering selling reasonably well. And caravans, particularly static sites, you would expect people going there for the summer months. So that's good to see. Moving on to ourselves on the 3rd of July, hotels, cafes, coffee shops, bars and restaurants all will open along with visitor attractions. I would say the most important thing to say is this: hotels have the choice or ability to open from that date. Quite a large number of people are actually not opening. They have decided to wait. Some people are doing some work in terms of refurbishment. Some people have different things that they have in place. And some people want to do some stuff beforehand. So the opening dates sort of vary anytime from the 3rd of July through to the middle of August, depending on what state people are in. So that's an important thing to sort of remember. And also to remember on visitor attractions, if you're pointing people to visitor attractions near your hotel premises or your accommodation, some of the visitor attractions are holding back on their opening until they find out what they can do in relation to social distancing. So in relation to rooms reopening, and this is a sector where I have to say the amount of propaganda, and this is quite incredible. If I could only have the same level of media penetration that the Minister of Rumour has, I would be running a small country. There is no restriction on your occupancy. You can sell all your rooms if you deem that you can actually safely do so. And there is no requirement to make your room fallow. You don't have to sell 30 rooms one night, a different 30 the next, and a different 30 the third. Some companies have made a decision to do that, as have some countries. For example, I think Portugal has a fallow room policy, and some companies, I think Marriott perhaps, have one as well. You can open your restaurant. You can do that. There's no issue with that at all. You will not be getting a minimum number of covers to take. So it is up to you to decide what is the maximum size of table that you take. So most people are going 6, 8, probably a maximum of 10 if they really have to. And this ties into what your social distancing is. You can open your bar, but your main element of your bar, your indoor bar, has to be food. Alcohol is seen as an auxiliary part of the bill. They recommend that you do table service, contactless trading, that's very difficult to say, contactless trading where possible, and there is the current social distancing piece. So the social distancing is currently 2 meters. So moving on to the conditions that are currently in place, no spas or leisure. This may change and alter possibly this week, with a view to kind of allowing people to do, if you currently, you can do like nail bars and stuff like that. The idea is that this will move forward. No large events. Also, I believe due for review this week. No weddings due for review this week. And just to say that in the south of Ireland, you can now have 50 people indoors from the 29th of June and 100 people at a wedding from the 20th of July. My understanding is that that 100 may include your staff, but the guidelines aren't out as yet. And as I've said before, there is no guidance on maximum numbers for tables. A number of people thought that they were only going to be able to book smaller numbers, but that will not be enforced. For you to reopen, you need to have done a risk assessment, and your risk assessment should really include consulting your staff and having the records of having consulted them, looking at your premises and your structure of your building to identify where are pinch points, congestion areas, and like really touch areas within your business and how often you clean them. Your operational activity should be based around that. For example, if you have a reception desk, you may want to hire it, lower it, put a screen in front of it, but you may also want to introduce a bigger cleaning thing. And from that point of view, I suppose, and this is the one point we've really made, people have kept housekeepers and cleaning staff probably hidden. I'm running a business of bright pink high-vis jackets with "I'm cleaning" on them. So you need to make sure that people actually see that not alone is it being done, but that you're actually doing it. There are a few templates on that on the Northern Ireland business site. And the whole basis of this risk assessment is that you are COVID compliant. And your compliance may be different to any other business. People are a bit nervous about doing a risk assessment, but I would say most people have a risk assessment. For example, your fire safety certificate would be based on a risk assessment. If anybody is really in real doubt or they're really struggling with it, they can either give us a call, or alternatively, if you contact whoever does your insurance and some of your inspection work, they may be able to help you through it as well. The recommended things that are recommended is really this contract just creating piece, which is an app for orders. If you don't have an app, then look at how people can pay. Pre-ordering of food, also things like menus, doing a single menu for a person when they come in, doing a single set of instructions, looking at them, handed to them, key cards, giving people a sealed key card that you can actually disinfect afterwards. Increased visible sanitation. This can be either sanitation points, alternatively it can be plumbed activity, it can be areas as you enter and leave rooms, particularly around toilets where you may have a double door into your toilets. You may want to put a sanitation station outside as well as inside, because you will have that double touch. The other thing you can look at doing is maybe wedging the outer door open. And also, if you have any standard procedures within your business, the recommendation is that you review those. The full guidelines are due out. I understood that they were supposed to come out today or tomorrow. They're currently UK-wide, so they have to be signed out in Westminster. And there is also a charter or safety mark, which is based on self-assessment, and this is called Good to Go. You go in and you tick off the things that you've done. You've done your risk assessment, you've talked to your staff, you have identified the different areas that are there. That also, I think, may not be available to next week. It's a green mark and that you get, that you're entitled to use in your business if you want to reassure your customers. So that's one thing that we really asked for. I suppose the people who have really done this best are the Portuguese, who have a Safe Stay campaign, as have a couple of the brands, Hilton and Accor, both have been quite vocal in theirs. The big thorny issue in our industry has been social distancing. This is currently 2 meters. This graphic is movable. I can move the arrows and the feet closer together. So it's 2 meters at the moment. There is a bit of a tussle on this for it to move to 1 meter. And if I look throughout Europe, Germany, 2 meters due to be reviewed. France opened on 1 meter. A number of people are at 1.5 meters. So it is something that it is going to kind of work through the system. The one thing to say, it does say 2 meters if possible in operational settings. So within your kitchen, for example, if you are not able to put people 2 meters apart, or at a food counter, or at maybe your reception desk, you should look at putting a screen between them so that they are separated in that way. I wouldn't be putting up too many screens at the moment, and I definitely wouldn't be buying any signs with 2 meters on them, just in case. You're better saying, you know, we reflect social distancing. You can at that point introduce some things like PPE into that sort of world if you wish to, but there is no necessity for everybody to have PPE everywhere. This is, I think, in my immortal words, is you're going to visit a hospitality experience, you're not going to a hospital. But the one area you should really look at is housekeeping, how you're going to handle them. I suppose the other area to mention is staff uniforms. Your staff shouldn't wear their uniforms over 2 shifts. They should ideally change when they're in work, and either you wash everything at 60 degrees or they wash them at 60 degrees. So that's an important thing to notice. The guidelines themselves, sorry, I'll go and move on to quarantine first. It's okay, you moved on to quarantine, it's fine. There is a quarantine in place. So there's a quarantine between UK to Northern Ireland, no quarantine. So people can come from the UK very easily. GB, if you leave London and you go to Ireland, you will do 2 weeks quarantine. And this also applies to Irish citizens who have travelled to Britain. So you simply, that's the way that it is. So if I leave Dublin tomorrow and I go into London, I will go in without quarantine. If I come back from London in 2 weeks' time, I will be doing 2 weeks self-isolation. Quarantine in place in large amounts of Europe, though I see that Spain has brought theirs down, and this will be something that will roll out. So for us, if somebody wants to come from London and they want to come to Ireland, they can come to Northern Ireland without any quarantine at all. So that might be a bit of opportunity for us. Alternatively, you could lie and say that they have to stay in the same hotel for 2 weeks or the same guest house and get the extra business from them. But I didn't tell you that. Just returning to the guidelines for a minute. On the guidelines, sorry, have you gone forward or back?
Yeah,
forward. That's it. Sorry. Sorry, I'm not. Adrienne is controlling my string. My strings. So on the guidelines, there's a big document from DFE, which is the Department for the Economy. This has come out of a document that's been done UK-wide from DCMS, which is Digital Media, Sports and Culture in London. So it is UK-wide. It's supported by a sort of a set of documents behind it, the charter mark that I mentioned, and we will have a full set of guidelines, including some mocked up SOPs on our website. We have a position for them. We just can't let them go because I have had to sign almost the Official Secrets Act. Not quite, but I fear for my health if we sent stuff out without it being approved. And I suppose this really moves on to, where are the opportunities for us? Most people are reopening. So when I look at if you want to move me along a slide there, Adrienne, if I look at the opportunities at the moment, these are based on a £1 billion spend. So roughly £300 million is spent locally by local people in Northern Ireland in a year. The people of Northern Ireland spent £880 million going abroad, which is quite a lot of money, particularly when you say it quickly. And we bring in 660 odd million from people from overseas. So in that overseas figures is the Irish Republic and also the UK. So there are opportunities within that. So from us, we probably have 3 opportunities: Northern Ireland domestic, the Republic of Ireland and GB. Fair amount of noise about people coming home to see their parents. Hopefully they won't like their parents or their family that much, and they'll want to avail of some commercial activity or to stay somewhere. There will be a limited opportunity to travel abroad this year, and not least based on the fact that there's very little air connectivity. There is a pent-up demand. I sit on a thing where we look at customer sentiment, and that sentiment is moving very quickly towards people wanting to travel. First of all, people were terrified, then they were less terrified, then they were fed up, and now the next one is due out. It should be out this week at some stage, but it's been very interesting, the shift in that, to see how it's there's a sort of a quadrant that you use in emotional psychology, and it basically is you replace the dread that you have is overtaken by the desire to do something. So from our point of view, that's quite a good thing. The other thing is, the economists have said that furlough has actually preserved spending. So a lot of people that were on furlough and haven't been out have actually had the ability to save up money because there's been nothing really to spend it on. Also, unusually in Northern Ireland, something like 70% of our economy or workforce is directly dependent, either directly or indirectly dependent on government. So those people actually may still have money to spend. And I suppose there is a sentiment for local travel and local hotel stays. Some countries, for example, France, have given people vouchers to support local tourism. And there is some noise around the fact that that might happen in the south as well, that you will get a voucher to spend on a stay within the Republic of Ireland. So just interesting to see how that rolls out. At the moment, we are involved in a big marketing campaign with Tourism Northern Ireland. Many of you will have seen it, and thank you to everybody who put in their offers. And Adrienne, if you want to turn to the next slide there. The big thing in this is really customer reassurance. And don't have to do that all physically around your site. You know, having signage by nature of what it is can be a bit confusing and isn't always that nice to look at. So if you can put stuff up on your website, reassure your customers, be flexible on cancellation and terms, because people are a bit worried, you know, if something happens or if this place has to close, will I get my money back? Can I get my money back? When can I get my money back? Be very clear on your date of reopening. Some people have decided theirs, go out with that, warm up the customers that you have, and Adrienne will go into more detail about this than me. The other sentiment is towards longer stays, people talking about a 4-night break. And then a couple of the things you should consider is your non-resident options, particularly if you're doing risk assessments and looking at how that works, and new food and beverage options. If you can't sell drink, how much food can you sell? In the south, it's €9 is what they have put that must be on the drink bill. I've pointed out that in Dublin, I think that might buy you 1.5 bags of peanuts. But you know, you can do sandwiches and get yourself around that. Extended room service is another one. You know, do you want to look at doing that in a manner that works for you, whether it's pre-bagged, picnics for people if they want to go out instead of doing lunch, or if you've nice grounds, you could maybe use outside or a park or an area that's near you. Outdoor dining if you've a terrace. The other thing, just to say, when people drink outside, they do not have to buy food. So if you have a terrace, you can sell them drink only. You know, book breakfast. If your breakfast pinch point is 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning or 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you may need to look at moving that and having a bookable breakfast window. Breakfast to go. So if people don't eat your breakfast, you offer them breakfast to go instead. And then the takeaway idea, you know, if you've built that up as a business, is there a way around this so people can come in, have a drink at their bar and take their food to go? All of those things are quite important, and something that you should look at in terms of maybe getting an additional income stream. I've just been on the phone with the journalist and I said, you know, you can't actually predict what's going to happen here because nobody's been in this position before, and we don't actually really know how consumers are going to behave. We are actually, as I mentioned, doing a campaign with TNI, and if Adrienne just moved me on to you'd be relieved to hear my final slide. This is the brochure that all of you should have got in the post. So at the moment, this is out. There's 2 phases. The first part's digital, which is free to enter. The second part, you can put in your stuff and you can get up to 75% of the money you spend. One thing to say on this is it's not just the money for your promotion. You can also get back 75% of what you have actually invested in creation of design. Or if you decide to do a radio ad, or you decide to do a special Facebook landing page or a landing page on your website, you can actually get the money for that back as well. And that might be a good investment for you. If you wanted to say, get something designed, run it on your Twitter feed, run it over your Instagram and do stuff like that, you can put that money in. Unusually, this is both for Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland this time. So you can go after both markets. And it'll run from July to mid-August is phase 1, and mid-August to mid-October is the second phase. This just hasn't been finally bedded down yet because there's a bit of work to be done on sentiment and also a little bit of work to be done around the actual final timings when everybody's open. And you can apply for either or both. All the details are on our website. It's called TNI Recovery Campaign. And I hope that some of or all of you will take part, and that it is an opportunity over the summer for you to gain additional promotion. I do realise budgets are very tight, but if people want to spend £500, you'll get 75% of that back. And I think that is about £125, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, from our point of view, we're keen for people to get out there, get into the market, and maybe do things that they haven't done before. So that's really my kind of update. I think I've covered off most things. If people have any specifics that they want to ask, just put a little question in the chat box. Anything that you've heard that you want to check whether it's true or not. If we don't have the answer, we'll try and find the answer for you, or the answer simply may not be available yet. At the moment, we put most of our stuff out on social media, either via our Facebook page, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, and we do have an e-zine, and we do update our website. So if you follow us on any of those platforms, you will find out the information. But hopefully you will get guidelines this week, which will make life a little bit easier. And that's it for me. And over to you, Adrienne.
Thank you very much.
Magnificent clicking. Magnificent.
I was going to say, sorry for ruining your lovely
oh, it's quite all right. Magnificent.
Okay, let me just pull this up. And hopefully you can see that okay, everybody? Hope so, Janice?
Yeah.
I think I can't actually see who's on the call or not, but I think I probably know most of you. For those who don't know me, my name is Adrienne, and I'm the founder of a company called Right Revenue. We have a software solution for revenue management, but that was really born after about 100 years, I'm not even joking, of me working as a revenue manager. So Janice has very kindly asked me to chat through some of the things that I would recommend, because I'm still very active in the industry, still do a lot of consultative work, and so feel I'm quite close to the ground with you guys and understand what's going on in your world. So I'm hoping these might help. So here we go. So as Janice said, it is really, really important to get your messaging right, and that's everything that you do. So we have a massive opportunity, and I'm going to go into that in more detail a little further on, but we have a massive opportunity at the moment to try and take back some control from the OTAs. And one of those things is making sure that your website is the best it's ever been. And that means, making sure your photography is great, your content is great, but around COVID, that you have really clear messaging on your site about what you're doing. Now, that doesn't have to come with any sort of really strong wording around legislation. It needs to have clear messaging, but in a soft, friendly and inviting way. Just tell people that you are clean, that you are safe, that you're providing a safe environment for people to come back to. Start the conversation now, and I think you will start to reap the rewards on that. Even if you're not opening right away, you need to start communicating with your customers. And I think we all were a little bit nervous about communicating to people too soon, as if it might be seen in bad taste. But now is definitely the time to get your messaging right. And that really goes hand in hand with what are you doing, not just about your messaging, about being safe and clean and hygienic to visit to, but what messages are you actually getting out there to your customers? Now, I won't name the hotel, but there is a fantastic property not that far from where I am who started a conversation with their customers over the last month or so. And that was just inviting people to use their gardens, something they'd never done before, but they came out into the market with social media saying that they were, putting dog bowls out, come and use the gardens to walk in. Then they started to introduce complimentary tea and coffee to give away. They had an open day where they had music and you could bring your picnic. The hotel was closed, but they were making good use of their gardens. Now, locally, that has been really, really well received. People are talking about that hotel, and they've got that local market talking about them and actively engaged in everything they're doing. Now, I'm not saying obviously that's going to be right for everyone, but you do need to start communicating with your guests. And as Janice has rightly pointed out, we all know that staycation is going to be the first market to come back. And you think of yourself, if you've got children and are homeschooling, or everyone's been at home for months and months on end, there is definitely that pent up demand. People will want to come to your hotel. But time and time again, when I'm in properties, the databases aren't segmented particularly well at all. If you haven't done that, and really this should have been done weeks and weeks ago, but if you haven't done that now, you should be segmenting your databases, understanding what is corporate, who stayed with you because they were here for a wedding, who stayed with you, because they were, they just happened to leave their email address and they were part of a tour group or whatever. You need to understand who your market is going to be, how you're going to communicate to this new staycation market. Are they family? What can you do to entice those people back? And we'll look at some ideas for packaging further on. But this really is an opportunity for you to start cleaning those databases, understanding who you can talk to, who you can target in a very geo-specific way. So who's local in Northern Ireland, who's in the south of Ireland, who's in the UK, and what packages you're going to be able to put together to entice those people to your property. So this is where using your data comes in, and we really do need to consider your segmentation. We know for a fact that tour business is going to be tough. You know, even through into 2021, there's 50% wash expected on tour business. So even if you have all of this lovely tour business, you know, confirmed in your hotel now, you need to expect 50% wash in that. Corporates, meeting and events, they are going to have an extremely long tail recovery. We know that, and it goes back to that. Businesses can't be seen to be sending their staff away. Now, we are all hoping that that is very short-lived, and in the same way that we all expected air travel to really suffer after 9/11, and it didn't suffer the way the experts predicted, we are really hoping that the corporate and meeting and events business does come back sooner. But what are you going to do in the short term? So it is really a good time to review that segmentation. And a lot of the hotels that I'm talking to at the minute, or a lot of experts that I'm talking to at the minute, are talking about really re-looking at your segmentation and potentially putting in a proximity segment. So for example, proximity segment could be someone who is within 2.5 hours drive from your hotel. So how are you going to target that particular segment? Are you able to accept families in your hotel? What are you going to do to entice those people in? Even if you are traditionally known as a corporate business city centre hotel, we are all people of hospitality. That's all of our jobs, is to supply hospitality to our customers. So we all have an opportunity to get that guest back again. So what are we doing to look at our segmentation, to shake everything up? And no matter what you think your business was before, we all have to be ready for a very new customer coming in with very different buying patterns. Again, we'll look at that in a little bit more detail. But my advice to you is to have a look at your market segments, know where those gaps are going to be, and use your data. If you have, you know, those very businessy or tour group related segments, understand what business you are going to lose, understand the potential timeframes around that, and understand then how you are going to potentially pick up and attract new segments. So if we are all looking for that staycation business, how do you stand out from the crowd? Well, I spoke to one hotelier who's a large group of hotels in the south of Ireland, and he said for the first time in his life, he's marketing people to come to his property and then marketing to get them out of his property. So what he meant by that was he wants to try and entice people into the property with great rates, but with really different packages. So getting people to come into the hotel, but then getting them outside. So talking about cycling, talking about walking, talking about the different tourist attractions that people can go to. So he wants people into the hotel and then making sure that they know that there's lots of activities to do outside. And that really doesn't matter if you're in the city centre or a rural location. Yes, we all expect those lovely country hotels and those resort type properties to come back first and have a really strong staycation business. But again, I'd like to reiterate that we all have an opportunity to get some of that business back. But even simple things like talk about the size of your rooms. If you are a hotel that can put extra beds in your room or have slightly larger rooms, then talk about it. Make sure that your guests know that if they're going to be in your property, that they have room for their for families to stay. Talk about your outdoor space. As Janice alluded to, you know, you can put people outside dining and having a drink. So if you haven't got, if you're not maximising your outside space, then this is the time that you need to do that. Think outside the box. Think about all the things that you could be doing to attract these new segments. You know, for example, I have one hotel that has gone out and bought little pop-up tents. for kids to sleep in, because they're not necessarily known as being a family hotel. They know that market is going to come back really strongly, and hopefully first. So they're looking at what they can do to attract children and families to their hotel. So look at the kind of property you have, look at that new segmentation, use your data to review it, look at the gaps in your business and see where else you can actually be making a massive impact. So once you've done all that and you've maybe potentially looked at, you know, this new segmentation, whether it's in a different market, you know, a different country or a different market than you're actually used to attracting, then you need to understand the persona of your guest. So we've done this exercise in many of the hotels that I've worked in over the last 20 years. And what we do is we literally build a person. I know it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but you understand that you might speak to your granny very differently to you might speak to your teenage daughter. So that's what you need to do. You build a persona of this new guest. So for most of us, we all know that it's usually women that will make the decision on where they're going to stay. So design that person. What age is that person? Is she 25? Is she 45? Is she married? Does she have children? What kind of job does she have? Where does she like to shop? What kind of car does she drive? What are her children called? Does she have a pet? What does she do at the weekends? What does she like to do with her friends? What's her favorite food? What's her favorite drink? If you do that, then you build up your perfect guest for that particular segment. So if you're going after, let's say, the 25 to 35-year-olds, you will have a very different persona to someone who's going after the 45 to 65-year-old age group. So build that person and then make sure that everything you do is actually built around that person. So in our own business, we have Debbie. And every time we are marketing, anything that you see online that I post online is with our persona of hotelier in mind. And you do that to your guests. So make sure that any rates that you're selling have been designed with your person in mind, and any marketing or sales that you're doing are all built around that particular kind of guest that you want to attract. My favourite, for most of you that know me will know that I am a massive advocate of holding your rates, because let's be honest, dropping your rate does not stimulate demand at all. And if you drop your rates even by 20%, it will, I guarantee you, take you 3 years to recover. Now, we all know that we potentially will have pressure from owners to drop rates, that a lot of owners will see occupancy as being their saving grace. This is where good revenue management skills come in, and I ask you all to have a voice. Tour operators will demand 20% reduction. Corporate buyers are demanding at the moment up to 30% reduction. You need to understand the impact that that is going to have on your bottom line, because a 20% reduction on top line can actually take between 27 and 30% net profit off your bottom line. So it's a huge, huge consideration to make. I think what we are all concerned about is that, if 4 stars are dropping their rates and they go into the 3-star market, 3-star hotels then drop their rates and go into the 2-star market. I beg you not to do that. And there's several reasons why. I think not everyone is going to be price conscious. As Janice said, there's going to be lots of people who've been on furlough and haven't spent a thing. Honestly, if you saw the amount of Amazon parcels arriving at my door, you would understand that I haven't been out doing my normal social life, so I'm buying shoes instead. So there's going to be people that have pent up demand and are not as price conscious as a lot of people may think. The people who are really price conscious, and I'm not taking that away, there will be many people who are going through a really tough time at the moment, but those people just won't travel or won't be interested in traveling to your resort or your property anyway. So just be very considerate about dropping rates. We all know that there's a way to maximize, and that's by opaquing rates and making some really, really great packages. So dropping rates does not stimulate demand. And I would ask you to have a really strong voice and understand your metrics, understand the impact that a drop in a few percent of your ADR is going to make long term, and hopefully communicate that to your senior management and to your owners. So I suppose this comes back to reviewing your rate strategy. So review rates, build interesting packages. Now is the time where you can actually start to build loyalty. So all of those lovely guests who have stayed with you before, if you have looked at those guests and reviewed your databases, you know who stayed with you before, send them out a loyalty rate. Send them out something to say, look, we really value that you've stayed with us before. We want to offer you something to come back. And offer them something. Now, it doesn't have to be a drop in rates. And actually, over all of the years that I've been doing this, what I find works best is where you add added value, extra value into your package for your guest. So this could be a complimentary upgrade, it could be, you know, a bottle of wine on arrival, or a cocktail, or 20% off an activity. People want to feel that you're building in an experience for them, and that's going to be a massive word for us all moving forward. Guests will want an experience. They'll want to make it really, really memorable. So this is your time to build these interesting packages and push them out to your loyal guests, to closed user groups. That means you're not actually taking a hit on your rate and, you know, not having to take that knock on your front line where everyone can see it on your website. But send out those really great rates to closed user groups, to your loyal customers, but make sure that you understand your costs and your profitability. Your job is to create new demand. And that means you have to understand, as Janice rightly said, there's going to be longer stay guests. You need flexible rate policies. They will have shorter lead times. There will be new feeder markets. That's going to be a massive consideration for us all at the moment. Markets that we didn't know existed before will come to the fore for your property. And the one thing that we know is that the things that you knew in the past are no longer true. The market will change, customer buying behaviour will change, and it's up to us to make sure that we have the right rate strategy in place for these new guests. A lot of hotels, I probably get this question every day, should I start my PPC, my SEO and my meta campaign? The answer is yes. You need to start bidding on your place now on Google. So if you have a marketeer, a marketing company working for you, now is the time to start having those conversations, but they should be very different conversations. So you know now that you need to be very geo-specific with your guests. You need to understand that you could be doing a campaign for anyone within 2.5 hours drive of your hotel. So make sure that your marketing company knows that. You've got your new persona. So make sure that, again, your marketing company knows that you're targeting 35 to 45-year-olds or a family or the older age group. Make sure that, you know, and a lot of you will understand this, you know, if you've worked with marketing companies, but make sure your site extension, your keywords in your ads, make sure that they all align to your particular campaign. Again, start from who is your new guest, use your data to get that information, build some fantastic rates, and then get them out into the market. But make sure that you're controlling your marketing company, not the other way around. Ask interesting questions. Ask what search terms have been used in the past, what search terms are being used now, which markets are actually searching for your hotel, and build your campaign around that. So yeah, it's time to think local and it's time to think direct. This is a unique time for us to win back business from the OTAs. And again, if any of you know me, you will know that much as I come from a travel background and respect what OTAs do and the marketing that they do, we all know that they've been running very unfair campaigns and the relationship is not stable. We have this unique time to actually understand that our guests are thinking about us locally. So for example, if you want to go away for a weekend, you know that you might want to go to, you know, Loch Esk Castle or Farnham Estate or, you know, lovely Olga's up in Da Vinci's. You will know that hotel. So the chances are that you will not actually look to an OTA, but because you know that hotel, you're going to go onto their website. So again, we go back to having the content well written, some great photography, your messaging right, but that you've got really great rates on your website, and you make sure that people know that the best way to book is to book direct. Make sure you're communicating that out on absolutely every piece of correspondence that you're doing. I'm speaking to a lot of hotels in the south of Ireland, and their OTA business has dropped phenomenally, and their direct business is actually just going up through the roof. I was speaking to some hotels that were getting 30% of their business in the past from OTAs. That's less than 5% now, and everything is coming in direct. You have got a unique opportunity at the moment to make sure that you're hitting your direct guests. I know that this is a ridiculous thing to say, but make sure that you have your 2021 availability loaded. I did a sweep of about 20 hotels last week, and not one of them had availability past March 2021. So please make sure that you have your 2021 availability loaded. We have people who will want to travel, but maybe a wee bit nervous about traveling in the first couple of months, but they want something to look forward to. So make sure that you have your availability loaded. The other thing is just to make sure, make sure it's loaded on your brand website. The other thing then is, of course, just to be very careful about what you're doing for 2020 business. We all know that we have moved, all this wonderful business that we had for 2020 a lot of it has moved into 2021. But make sure that you're yielding that properly. I was speaking to a hotel the other day who said that when the revenue manager came back off furlough, she realised that the res team had put 2 groups in on a Saturday night and she only had 3 rooms to sell. That's not acceptable. You have to be very, very aware. If you had a wedding that was going to take place on a Thursday this year, if they've moved to a Saturday next year, first of all, was that the right decision to take? And how are you yielding your bedroom stock around that? So be very, very careful and hold your rate for 2021, but make sure that you're actually yielding it properly. We've talked a little bit about this, your distribution policy. Google is going to come out fighting, and you will find that there's probably going to be a couple of big winners in this, and that, you know, a lot of the noise is going to go. Booking.com is not going anywhere, unfortunately, and nor is Expedia. So as we all know, Expedia has been a wee bit more flexible with their cancellation policies and help with hotels. Booking.com have dug the heels in a little bit. But the big one that we're going to have to watch is Google. Google Hotel Finder is coming out fighting. And again, I would just be just make sure that you're up to date with what's going on there. Make sure that you're reading the journals, reading the press releases that's coming out day and daily, and make sure that you know what's going on in that OTA space. But again, and I've said this to every hotel that I work with, the OTAs do not own your business, nor are they base business. Your OTA business should only really be topping up your normal business. They are a distribution channel, but one of many, and only a distribution channel. You only need to sell rooms to them when you need to sell rooms to them, and they cannot survive, and we know that. Booking.com have gone to the Dutch government asking for a massive bailout. They cannot survive without us. So now is the time to relook at everything you're doing and make sure that you have the correct distribution policy in place for your particular hotel. And whatever you do, be prepared to pivot. Whatever business you think you have today will not be the business that you will have in 3 months. And the only constant thing in life is change, so we need to be ready for it. My advice is really to forget about budgeting for now and start scenario planning. You need to have a look at what if my corporate market doesn't come back until Q2 2021? What if my tour business does cancel 50% of all of the rooms that I'm holding. Work out different scenarios, then add percentages to that. So what if I'm 20% pessimistic or 20% optimistic? What does that do to my bottom line? What we're going to find is a whole new way of budgeting. And instead of the financial controller passing down a budget to the rest of the team, I think what's going to become very apparent over the next 6 months is that the budget will be passed up. It's going to be the revenue managers and the people actually looking at the revenue, looking at the segmentation, writing the rates, and understanding these different scenarios that will be pushing the business back up. We have to plan for a high cancellation rate. We already know that before COVID, 50% of all Booking.com bookings cancelled. That's going to get higher, I am sure it is. But as I say, your tour business, the CEO of Marriott has come out and said that he's expecting 50% wash on all group business for Marriott worldwide. So you have to be prepared for that. So for example, the tour ops are going to struggle. We know that wedding numbers will be smaller, events will be smaller. And don't forget that one thing that actually we often overlook is if you have a tour operating business for people coming overseas that are over 60 years old, they're going to have serious issues with getting insurance. So even if they want to travel, even if they're resilient, even if these people come back to you year after year, their insurance policies are going to go sky high next year. So that could be a massive consideration for us all if you've got European or American visitors coming. And as Janice said, we have to be prepared to be flexible. Flexible rates are going to be a mainstay until the end of the year, at least. But you need to be able to monitor that. So, for example, if you forecast too high, you end up moving rates too quickly and restricting demand. But if you forecast too low, you release too many low rates into the market and you don't restrict soon enough. So track some more. Use your data wherever you have it stored, but use that data to track. Patterns will arise and you need to be aware of those demands for different room types. You need to understand unconstrained demand in different room types. And you have to be flexible. If you're not flexible in your sales policy, your competitors will be. A £5 drop, as we've said before, will not win you new business, but that flexibility, that welcome, the communication, the experience, they will win you business. And if you do imagine all that pent-up demand, there are people out there that do want to travel with you, but you need to take down every single barrier of sale and make sure that you make your hotel as easy to book as possible. Understand your costs. This is going to be so important going into the future. Like we've talked, even some hotels struggle with, understanding predicted RevPAR. We now have to understand your cost per occupied room, your cost of customer acquisition, your profit per available room, and your profit per segment. So a little, a very unashamed plug for our system at the moment. We've developed some new reports to help you understand these costs. So your cost per occupied room, in all of the years that I've been working in hotels, I could count on one hand the number of hotels that can tell me accurately what their cost per occupied room is. And even if they do understand, they don't always communicate that down to the team. You have to understand the actual minimum rate that you can sell. You need to understand the base that you're going to start from. So understanding how much your rooms are going to cost, understanding that extra cost that COVID is going to put in, understanding your cost per room type. How much is it costing you to acquire a customer? How much is your meta, your pay-per-click campaigns, all of the offline marketing you're doing? That all has to be added into a line of cost. So you have to understand these new costs so that you can understand your profitability. And your profitability needs to be per room and per segment. So are there any more ways, new ways to do business? Well, of course there are. I have some hotels in the south that all through this, they're not opening their business for the rooms for key workers. They're actually opening their rooms for people who were used to hot desking. So if you imagine all those business parks that we have dotted all around the city and all around the country, hot desking is not going to be a thing for quite a while. No one's going to want to be moving in and out of a desk that hasn't been cleaned, and they're going to be concerned about that. So we have some hotels that are actually booking out their bedrooms and allowing people to come in, startup companies, people who were down in Science Park or down in business hubs, to actually rent their rooms and charge a low rate during the day. And it's perfect for someone like that because they've got their own loo on site, they've got the tea and coffee making facilities, they've got everything there, they've got a workstation, and it's working very well. And actually what that hotel was doing was, because obviously the bed didn't need to be changed and there could be minimal cleaning, that they actually were able to predict that they could actually turn those rooms around and use them in the evening if they had that demand. A lot of corporates are openly not going to renew office space, are not going to renew leases. So is there a new way for you to look at your meeting rooms? So for example, I just said to Janice before we started there, someone in my family is very senior in the RNIB, and they have 4 very expensive offices in Belfast, and they're considering not renewing leases and just having an all hands once a week and bringing all of their teams to a location for a day meeting once per week. Do you have an opportunity within your meeting rooms to allow that to happen? And again, we are perfectly placed for that to happen. We've got the AV, we've got the catering. And if you can go out there into the market and say, we are open to do business for you, tell us how you want to do business and we can work around you. I think there's going to be a whole new way of doing business, whether it's long term or short term. But if you need revenue, I think you need to think outside the box, be speaking to your customers and tell them that you're open for business and that you have a flexible way of doing business. We also need to understand which countries are returning quicker, and that goes back to that understanding feeder markets. So you need to understand where your new business is coming from, but also which countries are returning quicker. So again, if you're not asking these questions of your digital marketeer, or you're not looking at your Google Analytics, you need to be. So which countries are coming out of this and which countries might be able to travel quicker? As Janice said, with the quarantine restrictions being lifted, we could see that even if you may not have had a chunk of business from the UK before, or Scotland or Wales, that business could come back to you or could come to you quite quickly. So understand where people are actually coming from, look at your search behaviour on your website and take all of that into consideration. Invest in technology, and I promise you this is not a plug for us, but you cannot do this alone. Whether it's a new CRM system, whether it is how you control or communicate to your guests, whether it's your pre-stay, post-stay emails, whether it is again segmenting your databases, whether it is smart technology so that you don't have to invest in, put customers through all of those touch points. Maybe it's contactless check-in. There's apps out there like Crichton or App My Convenience that will take away, the need for guest directories in your rooms. Have a look at all of the new technologies that are going to help you do business better. Some of the downstream apps and downstream technology, really consider investing in that. When I say consider, I mean that downstream technology shouldn't really be a consideration, but something that's going to help you understand your customer, understand your data, help you set your rate strategy and help you communicate that out. It's going to be crucial. And potentially looking at someone helping you with your marketing, even short term, and by marketing I mean the pay-per-click and the meta. Some of those things you're not going to get through this without technology. This is going to be a kick in the butt, excuse my language, it's going to be a kick in the butt for us all, that we need to be investing in technology to help our team make great decisions. And I think this is me over. But find your voice as revenue managers or people who are responsible for revenue management. We're often just, stereotyped as put in a cupboard, drawn in Excel spreadsheets, have a calculator in one hand and a crystal ball in the other. That's not revenue management. Revenue management is, whether it is a full-blown revenue manager, a full-blown revenue management system, or someone who is responsible for understanding your rate strategy, you need to give that person a voice. You need to let that person be the driver in every single decision that you make. Because without data, you're just another person with an opinion, and without an opinion, you're just another person with data. And I wish I'd made that quote up, but it's not mine. Final slide, and then we'll see if there's any questions. But just to let you know some of the things that we're doing. We have our software on offer at the moment. We're giving everyone no sign-up fee and 3 months for free. We understand that costs might be a concern for people, although we don't like to be seen as the cost of someone's bottom line. We're actually adding profitability to your top line. But as a thank you to the industry for all of the support that you've given us over the years, we'd like to give you 3 months use of our software for free. We do have a WhatsApp group. We have about 120 hoteliers that are in that, no suppliers. And if any of you would like to join that, it's a support group. I put very little in it. It's basically for hotel people in hotels, senior people in hotels, sorry, to ask questions about rates, about strategy. Obviously, no commercials are shared, or technology. And it's a great group just to support the industry. I put a lot on LinkedIn. We're doing daily opening advice at the moment. We do run our monthly webinars. We have a lot of partnerships with some of our local providers, probably I think up to about 18 or 20 of our local partners have come up with some great deals. So let me know if there's anything in particular that you're interested in. And we've also recently gone into a unique agreement with HOSPA, which is the UK, well actually the world's sales professional academy. And we can get your certificate in revenue management qualification at a highly discounted rate. So if that's something that any of you are interested, email me, you know where to get me. But that's me for now. Janice, is there any questions at all?
Patricia Treaty wants to know, can she talk?
Of course she can talk.
The answer to that is she can. The question is, will you let her?
Yes, if she just unmutes herself.
I think Janice has just been funny, Adrienne, but thanks very much for the opportunity anyway. You know me, as quiet as a mouse.
Listen, hardly know you're there.
I can't believe that none of the hoteliers on this call none of you have a question for Janice. These are all so genned up and everything that's happening. Well, guys, listen, you know where Janice or I are. If anybody has any questions, shoot them off afterwards. Oh, what is? I've just seen
Sally King. Just to say that if anybody, we hopefully will get the guidelines that will be out this week. So as soon as they come out, you can have them. We'll have them up on our website. They're pretty straightforward, and there's not really kind of that much that's there's not really that much stuff in them that's onerous. And they should be quite easy to follow. The idea is that you really do, you really look at your own business. And I would say if anybody hasn't done their self-assessment yet, they should start. And also you should really at this stage be consulting with your staff to see who's coming back and looking at, what sort of curtailments you need to make to the business and what hours you're going to be looking at. So that's really all from me. Lovely to see all of you in a variety of different guises. And I look forward to both talking with you and seeing you in person very soon.
Absolutely. And I'll get this out to you. I'll get that presentation out to you within the next few minutes, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks a million.
All right. Take care. Bye.